Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's Charlie Bengel Jr., CEO of Remax Allegiance. Welcome to another edition of the Allegiance Way Show and the Daily Dose. My co-host, as usual, is coaching extraordinaire, Amy Lassen. Amy, good to see you again.
You too.
So today, big picture marketing. We were talking about this a few minutes ago, and I think we got a good show today.
Yeah,
good stuff. So talk to me about what, in your mind, is big picture marketing, and then we have a bit of an outline that we can share with folks once you're ready. But talk to me about what big picture marketing is for you.
Well, for me, it's the umbrella, that reaches over everything in your business. And I think most of us are guilty of, we want to try something new. Maybe we've never chased expireds before. We have this idea that we'd like to farm this one particular neighborhood. And we did send those 2 postcards that one time, or maybe we've heard about Google My Business and do I need a Google My Business listing? I'm not sure. And then all of this is rattling around and then we're ineffective. So for me, big picture marketing is any single thing that you want to be committed to doing. You're going to chase expireds. You're going to go after your sphere in a much more service-minded way. You are going to dominate in your geographic farm. Then you need a marketing plan for every single one of those. And if you want your brand to be visible online, Charlie, you and I have talked about people are Googling you. Like, do you know what they see when they do that? So if you want to have that all cleaned up, let's build a strategy for it and just start taking the things off one at a time and then be consistent over time.
Cool. So every lead pillar needs its own marketing plan. There's probably some people watching this going, "Oh boy, right? That doesn't sound exciting to me." But I think that you're exactly right. Do you want to pull up that outline, because we mentioned just a few things that that need to be
sure.
So these are just some examples of what needs to be some lead sources. This is not an exhaustive list of lead sources, of course, but the point was, if it's a lead source or a lead pillar, it needs to have a plan, right?
Right. Well, and let's just go ahead, and I'm going to just draw on here a little bit. So, listing marketing, the way you market your listing at a high level, the way you provide an extraordinary marketing vision to your seller that guarantees you other closable leads and promotes your brand is a very unique strategy. It's not the same as farming. It isn't.
Right.
You really do. Every single listing needs a marketing plan, and hopefully you have a master that you're working from. Sphere of influence, we talked on a previous call, a previous edition of the Allegiance Way show. Nurturing the people who know, like, and trust you over time is one of the best ways to be in business. And that has its own strategy, right? Those handwritten notes, maybe there's pop buys, maybe there's client and friend events, those things you wouldn't necessarily do for expired listings, right?
Sure, right.
Different strategy. So I hope that's obvious. The reason and I don't want people to feel overwhelmed, build them one at a time, implement them one at a time, and eventually you'll have all the big components in place.
Yeah, and I would say, master them one at a time before you move on to the next one. We want fewer lead sources at a level 10, not 10 lead sources at a level 5, right? That's something that we've talked about so many times over the last year or two.
Well, yeah, and just in case, I think sometimes, Charlie, you and I feel like maybe we're repeating ourselves. So just in case we have people listening who are going to feel like we're going too high level and we're just racing over this topic, geographic farming is a real point of pain for me with regard to being a coach. And I think, Charlie, you may have had the same experience when you have this client who says, "I've been farming," and I say, whoa, really? How could I not know this? I'm your coach. Where's the plan? And they're like, "Well, I don't have one." I'm like, "Okay, well, how is it a farm? Tell me, what do you do? How many houses in there?" I'm not sure. "What's the turnover rate?" "Oh, I don't know. I didn't check." "When was the last time you sent something?" "In January." And I'm thinking, okay, that's not geographic farming.
Right. Yeah, there's no plan, so it's kind of on a whim. And there's a lot of folks that think that geofarming is, is a just listed or a just sold card, which could be a component, but that's not geofarming. So we don't need to go down that rabbit hole today.
No, but to make it clear what we're talking about.
Yes, exactly. No, I like that. I'm just making some notes here. In an ideal world, maybe we have sample plans, and I'm not going to commit to this week, but maybe we have sample plans for the big lead sources, right? And then people can go in and edit and make it their own,
right? And the other thing I want to comfort everyone with is you don't have to suffer for lack of resources or information. Like if any of this is overwhelming, or you're just willing to admit that you haven't codified all of the marketing plans for all of your lead sources before now because you didn't know how, and
Right.
that's the reason you're winging it, there are resources, right? There are resources at Remax Allegiance that can help you. Whatever it is you want to chase, we can help set you up and make you consistent. And the truth is, every bit of consistency will practically double the use of our time once those are implemented. The dabbling is such a time drain. Really, really is. And you may not know that your dabbling is really, really eating up your time.
Agreed. And I would take it a step further and say that, as you start this journey, take the stuff that's rattling around in your head, right, and make that, that can be the beginning of one of these plans.
Yeah.
Right. So, it may not be the framework, it may just be a couple pieces, but start with what you're kind of playing around with. So talk to me more about, overall branding. This is kind of the second part of this, right? Your overall brand. We were talking before about, does some of this fall in under farming per se? It could, it may not. There's folks that advertise on shopping carts that don't farm in that area, right? And then there's people that farm that don't advertise on the shopping carts in that area. So, talk to me a little bit more about your overall brand.
So let's say, for the sake of argument, you have a listing marketing strategy that you're implementing. You are farming an area and have been for the last 3 years. You don't choose to chase expireds. You have a great sphere plan. You're good. Do you also have, kind of that filling in the mortar between the bricks plan for promoting your brand overall, right? Promoting your brand bigger picture. And so these are just examples of how that might be. And Charlie, you made an excellent point that some of these things may actually be in service of those other things. But do you have a Facebook strategy? Like when you put out the newsletter to your sphere of influence, do you also run an ad with the same stats or something like that? And that's big picture, right? That's putting it out. And then the old school examples are bus benches, shopping carts, but I put there in parentheses that doing that in your farm area would be way more efficient and effective than just randomly doing it somewhere. But if you're already doing that, please don't feel shamed. Just look at your return on investment. So these are examples of some old school and not so old school ways to do it. Google My Business is a very simple thing, and Remax Allegiance will help you set it up. This is something, to be clear, there's setting it up and then there's maintaining it. All right. So when I put these things as your brand, it's not just go get a picture taken, right? That's a setup thing. And we can't talk about that. But it's what would you do over time to maintain your Google My Business listing that's free and Google sponsored, right? To continue to raise awareness for it, to get clicks, to get impressions. Are you blogging on it? Are you adding photos? Are you adding events? That's just an example of ways that you could be preventing your big picture brand, and it's not one of these other pillars. Another thing, Charlie, is do you have your Bouge website set up, right? Remax Allegiance will do that for you. So set up your Bouge website, and no joke about getting a new picture taken. And so, look at the consistency of your brand. I have a niece who's in marketing, and she Googled me and she volunteered to do a brand audit for me. And it was interesting. She said, okay, you're all over the place. This bio doesn't match that one. The picture is completely different than that one. She said, think about what you want your brand to tell people and do a little bit of a brand audit on yourself and clean that up. But for our purposes today, we're saying, what is the thing that you're going to do over the 12 months to consistently promote your brand? Is it the monthly stats? Is it blogging on the various channels that you have your brand on?
Well, and I think some others, billboards. There's some agents that certainly use billboards in some areas. Close in DC, billboards are banned, thankfully. So the further out you go, you can get into a billboard. And then even, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but the old Homes and Land magazines, the magazines that we would oftentimes begrudgingly put a listing in, right, to make that seller happy. There's some agents, of course, that advertise in there month after month or quarter after quarter, just really as a presence. Or magazine advertising in general, right? The Washingtonian magazine, that has pretty decent circulation. At the back of that's a bunch of real estate ads. Not all those agents that have ads in that magazine are promoting listings. Sometimes they're just promoting themselves.
Well, and I would encourage people that actually listing marketing is one of the best marketing of yourself and your brand and your service, right? It really, really is. Because what do buyers want? Listings. So
Right.
I would say maximize your listing marketing vision. Don't just do the minimum.
Mm-hmm.
I've been surprised at the disagreements I've had with coaching clients who think that doing a full-on video tour or some sort of an interactive floor plan is too much for a $300,000 house.
Mm.
You figure out what is the standard for you, and now we're dipping back into a previous
Right.
way show, but come up with your own standard. And I remember years and years ago, I had a friend at my Remax office who told me, from now on, I'm always going to use a yard arm. From now on, I'm going to use a really nice, beautiful yard arm sign. That's going to be my signature. And
so that's a signpost for you folks in the DC metro area. Go on, Amy.
So that's not allowed in DC metro?
No, it is, but I think we just you're using a different term than maybe some folks are familiar with. So it's a signpost, right?
Simple ones where it's just framed around with metal and you just pound it into the ground. What are those called?
A frame.
Oh, okay. So
which are actually common down in Hampton Roads.
Okay.
But signposts are more common in the DC metro market for whatever reason. I think it's just customary. Some of these customs go back decades and nobody really knows why.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Well, and we had no custom, and the signposts, the yard arms, cost quite a bit more, right?
Yep. Yeah.
They're difficult to transport. They're more costly, but they're a little bit, more swanky. And he said from now on, and he said, I don't care if it's an $80,000 whatever. Of course,
that was his standard.
He said, this will be my standard.
Right. Right.
And I got the idea from that, and I created a standard. I always did an interactive floor plan, unless it was a one-bedroom, in which case drawing a floor plan would just have been excessive.
Yep.
But my assistant would always come to me and say, does this one get the Amy Lassen standard? And it just used to crack me up. It's like, yes, everything is the standard. So I just want to say, even as we broke out your brand as its own thing, nothing promotes the quality of your brand like promoting the quality of your work and doing an extraordinary job with every single listing.
Well, and, to add to that, this, today is May 26th. If somebody's watching 2020, if somebody's watching this in the future, we're in week 10 of COVID, probably. The new normal is here. Whatever your standard is, you need to make sure that it is up to par, right?
Yeah.
So there are people that are still taking listing photos with an iPhone. That's not up to par.
Yeah.
And my standard is Matterport, the floor plan, the whole bit. I don't care what size it is. Even if it's a one bedroom, I'll still do it because that's just my standard. So you and I differ there slightly, but at least we have a high standard.
Oh, yeah.
I noticed last week that Redfin is basically highlighting on the app and on their website those listings that have virtual tours. There's a little video camera icon.
Yeah.
So it jumps right out at you. So those folks that are not doing virtual tours, and a photographic slideshow is not a virtual tour, right? For those of us that are out there that may be wondering, there's a lot of eyeballs that go on Redfin, and this is a way for you to stand out. We should be doing it anyway. The video, the Matterport, the Ricoh 3D, whatever you're doing, because I think the olden days of just a few photos are long gone, right? Yeah. We want these buyers to narrow down their search before we have to go into houses with them, and we certainly don't want to be bugging sellers to drag people through their houses when a simple floor plan would tell that buyer that maybe they don't want that house for whatever reason.
Yep.
And I think there's some agents out there that subscribe to this notion that the less information, the more people you get through the house, and maybe they'll fall in love with it. Okay, maybe that was a fair argument 4 months ago, but that's no longer an argument that holds water, in my mind. So,
and then who are we serving?
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what is our standard really is a very good question to ask. And that's both on the buy side and the listing side. I think we talk about listing standards, but what's the experience that we want our buyers to have, and when does that start as well?
Yeah.
And by the way, we're going to be discussing the buyer process on Thursday and Friday this week. Tomorrow is your relationship with your CRM, and I hope it's a close and intimate relationship that everybody has with their CRM, by the way. We're going to be discussing that tomorrow. And then Thursday and Friday, we're going to wrap up the week with the buyer process. So let's kind of get back on track here. So your brand, I think things that you go ahead.
good, really simple tips. So here's the thing: we're doing big picture, right? We're doing big umbrella, but I do want to offer everybody listening a few real granular things, because I think getting started is sometimes the challenge, or feeling intimidated.
Yeah.
So recently I had a client really interested in a property that wasn't even offering showings for 2 weeks, in-person showings. Gloves and mask be damned, you couldn't get in there for 2 weeks. And the agent himself had done a video just walking through on his phone, explaining every little thing. And I had recently seen another agent do a video walkthrough, and it was professional. The photographer had very smoothly and used some sort of a stabilizer, and her voiceover was saying, and here's a closet. And there was something about just the dude with the phone. I liked it so much better. And all that to say, please don't overthink this. Right now, in this case, I'm not saying a professional video will be terrible. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying just him walking through and saying, see, there's the open space right there out the window. It was great, and it was really helpful.
Yeah, good.
Oh, and we've said this on previous calls. You can use the Zillow app.
Right.
The Zillow app.
Yes.
To upload a video to your Zillow profile, whether you're a agent or not. Steve
Flaster out of the Georgetown office did that in his condo and sent it to me. I didn't post it for everybody to see because I didn't want to share what his, condo looked like. I was really impressed with that, by the way. That Zillow app is very interesting, the way that you can do it. So if you all have not checked that out, that is a separate app from Zillow. It's not the Zillow Premier app or anything, and it's not the Zillow search app. It's a third app, I suppose, or a fourth app. So definitely check that out. It's free, and practice on your own house. And if you like it, maybe do that on the next listing.
Yep. Well, and okay, here's the reason to do this great. Serve your sellers. Like, you're being paid well.
Yeah.
Serve your sellers at the highest possible level. Earn your keep. That's number one. Number two, by promoting your listings extremely well, you're just exposing your brand, and you're more likely to get other business from it.
Right.
People see your work and like it, right? So you're going to get other closable leads. And then three, all of this is going into your portfolio, as it were. As if you put this into your portfolio work. I've had people say, gosh, it's probably going to go under contract in 48 hours. Should I really go to all this work? Yes, you should. This is part of your portfolio work.
Well, yeah. And, if you've never done video before, wouldn't it be nice to have video to show future sellers, right? You got to start somewhere.
Yes.
So, and same thing with the Matterport, the floor plans, the fancier postcard that may be the large postcard, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to have the same standard for the $300,000 condo that you have for the $1.5 million row house, but at least you'll have the collateral when that $1.5 million row house comes up. So I just think, setting your standards so you don't have to think about it is valuable. And I have clients who have different marketing plans for different price points. They have two separate marketing plans, right? This is going to be for 800 and above, off the shelf, ready to go, right? And this is one that's 800 and below, or this is run for ranch properties, and this is one for just regular in-town properties, right? Because marketing those are going to be very different.
Yeah. I am scrambling to look for something that I may not be able to find fast enough, because I really want us to talk about, once you have all this in place, how can you keep yourself on track and be focused? But I want to make sure that our message is understood. When you map out your business, everything needs to be mapped out, right? And I think those of us who are not organized can be forgiven for not understanding how many parts there were to running a real estate business. There was a lot, way a lot more to it, I think, than they told us when we signed up for license.
Right, yeah.
And even maybe when you interviewed with the broker that you signed on with, I don't think they tried to scare you away, by telling you how challenging it would be. So there's a lot to this. Please don't be intimidated, but please believe us that we're not kidding. All of this is real, and all of this will benefit you, and you just need to build it slowly over time. And you need to give yourself grace, and you need to have some patience with yourself, but believe that this much work is necessary. Just like somebody said, wear sunscreen, eat your vegetables, get some cardio, and you're like, nah. And then you get the diabetes diagnosis, and then you believe it.
Right. Yeah. And progress, not perfection. Right.
Yes.
So I like that. Give yourself some grace. So where can we store and access these plans and steps?
So everybody does it a little bit differently, and I don't want to leave you with no plan for action. And obviously, you've bulleted some out here. So for me, it's I'm going to have more than one, and it's not because I want to get lost.
Yeah.
No matter what, I want a whiteboard on the wall telling me what's coming. I'm a very visually driven person.
Okay.
I want my October sphere of influence touch to be out of sight, out of mind, and then I just get a ping on my calendar the day before it's due. Then it just feels too startling.
Yeah.
So for me, it's both, right?
Okay.
So I want to build the entire marketing calendar in a Google Calendar so that I can keep track of the details. And then I also want it on a whiteboard on my wall so I'm not losing track of the things. And this is, when does the newsletter go out? When is the mailing deadline for the postcard? When do you reach out to the expireds? And maybe that's more in your CRM. Actually, we should have put that here also, Charlie, is your CRM is probably, depending on which one we're talking about, CRM is the one that reminds you to market to an individual contact. And that's real.
And you can also assign tasks to yourself in many CRMs, right? So it's not a forgotten idea.
Yep. So, but here are some things that you may not know about. A Google spreadsheet could be really helpful. You could have dates and deadlines. You could have the pillar, and then you could have the tasks across the weeks or the months and keep track of it that way. Charlie, you and I both talked about Asana. Those of you who don't know Asana, it functions, well, it's unfair, I guess, to talk about it without them being able to see it. But Trello, for example, is a pretty simple, clean, doing, done board style format that you can put links and all sorts of things in. And Asana, to my eyes, is just taking Trello up a notch with, the ability to assign tasks. So whether or not you're a solo agent or you have an assistant or you have a large number of people working with you and for you, Asana may be a little bit better tool because the assigning and tracking is just somewhat seamless. And this can be for transaction management. It can do a lot of things. Trello is free. Actually, the Asana account I have is free. I don't know at what point you need to upgrade. So those would both be great.
Well, and just to interrupt you for a second, those of us that get ideas often and fall into the trap of emailing ourselves, then it just gets lost in our inbox, right? I love Asana because you can just go to the app. You can just write it as a task. You don't even need a due date, right? You don't need to assign it to anyone, but then it's there forever. Instead of you thinking, boy, I had this great idea, but I don't even remember what it was called or the subject line, right? You have thousands of different emails. So maybe you can do the same on Trello, but I like Asana for that. It's like idea tracking. And that's like, what, 10% of what Asana can do probably, if not less. But, these tools that we're talking about, you don't have to use them to their, entire capability, right? Use them to where you're comfortable and where it's helping you run your business. I was talking to agents in a group call this morning about getting into the habit of using a Google Calendar and then being able to use Calendly to have people book appointments with you. And I was telling them that you cannot use Calendly if you're not very highly disciplined to a calendar. You will get double booked. Right. And, and by being highly disciplined, I also mean, if you have an appointment, what's the drive time in getting to the appointment? You can't be in two different places at once. So scheduling back-to-back appointments may not work. So I think Google Calendar is great. I don't use iCalendar. I'm a big Mac guy, but I do not use iCalendar. I use Google Calendar, and I just think it's great, right? I like the reminders. You can have tasks on there. You can use Calendly. People can schedule stuff for me. You can share calendars. It just saves an enormous amount of time when you're working with teams, especially.
Well, and to clarify, those who are not power users of Google Calendar, you can create as many additional calendars as you want in your calendar. So I have my calendar, and then I can create one, let's say it's for workouts, and I can create, although that would probably go on my main calendar. But marketing is a perfect example of something that you can create as a whole separate thing. You can turn it on, you can turn it off. You don't have to have everything in your way. And with your eyes, like the postcard does not have to be shipped at 8:15 on Wednesday. You probably do have to meet your buyer at 8:15 on Wednesday. So
good point.
That's the difference.
Whiteboards, you kind of discussed that. Manifestly, boy, people just don't know that this exists. I just think it's this really cool tool. It's manifest.ly. That is the website. Websites are hip now. They're not .com. It's manifest.ly. This is simply a very simple checklist system. It is not necessarily for real estate. It is you can make a checklist for anything that is repeatable, and that's what we do within Remax Allegiance. Any task that we do more than once, we have a checklist for. And
Yep.
it can be fairly sophisticated in that, yes, you can assign it to different team members and this and that, but if you don't have team members, then you don't have to assign it to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So that is simply a checklist system. And then we were discussing a minute ago your CRM.
So I have a question about, to clarify for everyone listening, where they might want to first explore if they're not using any of these. I think I personally, being a very visually driven person, would take the functionality that I'm hoping for from Manifestly and just go to Asana, because Asana can also be very visual.
Yeah.
I can the image. Okay. Is that true that Asana could function that way also?
It's funny because we use both.
I know. And we being a brokerage.
Yeah, right.
His very large brokerage.
And so I think the answer to your question is yes. But out of all of these, if I'm like, I don't have any of this, it's going to be CRM and Google Calendar, right?
Oh, sure.
I mean, there are a lot of agents that I think that are out there that are still using the old day timers.
Yeah.
Which is fine if you have the day timer with you at that particular moment in time.
Yeah.
If I get a text message that somebody needs to change an appointment and I'm laying in bed, right? My calendar is in my hand, right? I have it, as an app. So, I don't have to go and find a day timer. And by the way, the day timer doesn't remind you. It doesn't scream at you that you're late. It doesn't scream at you that you have an appointment in 10 minutes or an hour or tomorrow, unless you're looking at it. So, using a day timer is better than using nothing. But I think that, if you're already used to that, I think you can get into the habit of using, a Google Calendar. If you're using a transaction management whiteboard, right? Maybe using a paperless pipeline for transaction management. So you always know where you are in a given transaction, regardless of whether you're in front of the file, right? I think there are some big teams that kind of got upset the last 10 weeks because they have great checklists, but they're all on paper. Sure. And suddenly the team's not working from the same office every day. And it's like, well, who's on first? And something like Paperless Pipeline, or I think, Trello can work for transaction management as well. Can it not? Everybody can, everybody's literally on the same page all the time by going in and just looking at it. You don't have to go and seek out a paper folder to see, we didn't order that termite inspection yet. And what's good about a lot of these programs is they yell at you if you've passed the deadline, right? Hey, you haven't ordered the termite yet. Closing's coming, right? You need to, you either need to dismiss it or order it, right? So paper checklist better than nothing. But if you're not looking at the paper, you can still screw it up. And the busier we get, the higher that, the higher likelihood it is, to do that. I was telling you that for whatever reason, I got a bunch of new Tom Ferry clients recently. Mm-hmm. And I was telling you right before the call that I was feeling a little overwhelmed because I do not have a written onboarding process for them. Why is that? I don't get that many at once, hardly ever. Right. Well, now suddenly I've got 8 or 9 month to date. And I'm scared to death that I've got somebody that I haven't scheduled their onboarding call yet, right? Or haven't gotten back to them, sent the welcome email. Sure. And shame on me. Shame on me. I could set up a Manifestly checklist very easily for this. And I probably will after the month that I've had. It's all good things, but it's like when you get 4 listings at once, if you haven't experienced that, then, again, it's a great thing, but it's easy to get overwhelmed if you don't have a system. So I feel like we've taken this from marketing to systems, but they often go,
but it is about the system.
It all goes under the umbrella of just being organized and less stressed.
Absolutely. Really. And the thing that you just said, Charlie, so well, without necessarily putting a label on it, is if there's something that you're going to do more than once in your business, you need a system for it.
Yep.
And you and I both know why that onboarding checklist didn't get codified. I think for me, it's also because I did have one, and then a bunch of processes changed, and I didn't keep updating it.
Yeah, you didn't update it, right.
Also, it didn't happen 8 in 2 weeks. So, but for all of us to earn the money that we earn and serve at such a high level and earn those listings and referrals, I think having these repeatable processes is a have to. Yep. And I want to comment on what you said about dreaming, Charlie, about where do you put your dreams and your ideas. Asana and Trello are so fun for that. And I will tell you, I was a really, really passive user of Trello for years and years, but I played with it because it's a very pretty visual interface, and I just put my dreams there. And the thing wonderful was I logged back in after months of ignoring it, and the dreams were still there. The notebook, however, not quite sure where I put it, right? Can't find the notebook I was writing in, but my Trello boards, have really held me in good stead, and now I'm using it at a higher and higher level
Good.
for process. So I want to encourage everybody that Asana and Trello could be really cool things for marketing, visioning, tracking, and transaction flow. And we're going to talk about that when we talk about buyer process, just like we did talk about listing process. Having a standard workflow and providing consistent service is absolutely key to success.
Good. I like it. I think we'll leave it there. I think that's a great way to sum things up. So again, tomorrow.
Let's do call
yeah.
to action maybe.
Yes, please do. Go ahead.
Well, so if you don't have your Google My Business thing set up, reach out.
Yep.
Who do you send them to?
You can just email education@rmxtalk.com and it'll be directed to the right place. Yep.
Great. And then your Bouge website, right?
Same
These
thing.
are part of your online brand. This is a gorgeous website, fully functional, provided to you by Remax Allegiance, and the ability to set it up by Remax Allegiance. So please take advantage of that.
Turnkey. Yep.
Who would they reach out to get
Same thing. Education@rmxtalk.com. It'll be directed to the right staff member. Tomorrow, your intimate relationship with your CRM. I've renamed the class for tomorrow, Amy.
Right.
And then Thursday and Friday, buyer process. So it's going to be a good short week. Good to see you again, Amy. And we'll see everybody tomorrow. Take care.
Bye, everybody.